Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Leanne, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Pete.
I sort of first came across you when I saw the BBC thing, because this was something we were just kind of discussing before we came on. And firstly, we're actually discussing the biggest loves of our lives, which are our German Shepherd babies. And then we got on to talking about the fire service. Actually got talking about some other stuff. But
yeah, second best. Everything's second best.
Yeah, obviously second best. You know, that's what people forget. It's like, well, it's not really my passion. My passion's my baby. And then after that, I've got an interest in the fire service and fitness. Exactly. But I kind of first came across you. I was sent a few clips, and then I ran across and watched the BBC programme. I think was it called About England, or what was the overarching series?
It's We Are England. They first approached me about it via a friend. So there's a female friend in the service who couldn't feature in the documentary because she wasn't from the right region that they wanted her for. So she got in touch with me and said, "Are you up for it?" Knowing the ins and outs of it fully, I was like, "Yeah, why not? Yeah, go on then. I'll give it a go."
How did they get in contact with you though? Was it through your service? Was it just an email or a?
So it was direct, so through a personal friend.
Okay.
So this personal friend then sent my contact details to her friend who worked for the BBC. And then they sent me an email. They said, "Would you be interested? Can we hold an interview with you to see how you appear on camera?" So I said, yeah, why not? So you interviewed a handful of people from across my service. And yeah, they went and chose me. And it's definitely one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done.
Really? Well, that first sit-down chat. Did you actually have to chat in person, or was it Zoom or?
No, during the documentary. So when the cameras came over to my home, that was like, "Ooh, this is really serious." I'm gonna have to be on my best behavior.
Because you had your partner featured on it as well, so it was kind of like you had to have everybody on board. Yeah. I was really blown away by seeing like the rest of the watch and stuff were really on board with it, because and I don't know if that was or wasn't the case, and it doesn't specifically matter about individuals, but it's like I can imagine all the stations and watches that I visit across the UK. Some people would hate the idea of that, and some people would specifically book a day off work, bless them, so that they didn't have to be there. But like, I hate that as well, though, because I'm like, we need to open the doors more. We need to let people into fire stations.
Oh, I completely agree. Like, I feel the public need to see and need to know us personally, because when we respond to them, it's very, very personal. We're going into their homes. We're helping them on their worst days. We're seeing their worst days. We're not seeing their professional front. So it's important they see us for who we are and we connect with the public. And my watch struggled to start with when I said that, "Oh, so I've been chosen to feature in this documentary," and they were like, "What?" I was like, "They're gonna follow the watch around for a couple of night shifts. Is that okay, guys?" And they were like, they were all really nervous. One of them did not want to be in it at all. I was like, no chance. So we were like, "That's fine. We'll ask them to come when you're on leave." So we managed to get over that one quite easily. And then and some of the other guys are like, "Oh, I don't mind being in it, but just try not to capture my face. I don't want my face being in it." And I get it. So like, even my partner Neil, he wasn't overly keen. He was just like, I do think it's weird. I don't like being in the limelight.
Yeah, I get that people like. I mean, it's obvious why, because some people, there's always like two sides to it. Because some people think, well, look, it's not all about me, and I don't like the ego side of it. But some people don't understand. It's not for some people that might be the case. But like when I do the podcast and stuff like that, I always say to people, it's not the Pete Wakefield podcast. You know, it's about firefighting. It's about the sector. You know, I just really would love to give people an insight into what we do. And again, it wasn't an episode based around Leanne. It was an episode based around firefighting. No. It was and the life and the conditions and the equipment and the incidents that you attend. I find, and it's so hard though, isn't it? Because you almost want to say to people like, or I do, I'm like, oh mate, just get over yourself. It's okay. No one's really even going to remember. They won't even remember you. Like they won't remember the main character or whatever. So don't worry about anybody looking back. It's not that way, but it's so hard, and you've got to respect people.
We are who we are. Yeah. There's no point hiding in the dark, and I think we should all be very proud of what we do in the service and what we give to our communities.
It's a massive pleasure to welcome our new partner to the podcast, GORE-TEX Professional Fabrics. Now, I've personally worn GORE-TEX for nearly 2 decades, working operationally in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. GORE-TEX have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services throughout their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceed global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. It's a really exciting and humbling moment to be welcoming GORE-TEX to the family. And the best way for you to support the podcast is to go over and find out a little bit more about all of the partners that help bring this podcast to you. So expect a lot of things coming from us in the future as we work together as a partnership to help inform, educate, and protect professionals in the fire and emergency services. GORE-TEX, going further together. Now back to the show. So what made you first want to actually join the fire service? Because we say about, looking more inside it and identifying with what the fire service is. What was it to you and what made you first want to join it?
So growing up, I had my role model. I had my Uncle G. Uncle Gary, he's called Gary Barnett.
I prefer
he's
Uncle G.
in the retained fire service. Yeah, I call him Uncle G, and accidentally the rest of his station now call him Uncle G because I kept doing it in front of the boys. So that's so Uncle G. He's been in the fire service for about 45 years now. Like incredible service. And his local fire station was next to my primary school. So we'd always see him. We'd see him tearing up past the school thinking, oh, that's Uncle G. He's probably getting to the fire station. He's got to shout. And then, give it 2 minutes. And then you see the blue lights and the big fire engine coming down past the playground, then across the front of the street. And I would run and chase it and be like, hey, Uncle Gary, like that's my uncle. I just was so proud of what he did and just thought he was the coolest uncle. And I've always had that in the back of my head that it's a real honor to do what we do. And your public presence is 9 times out of 10, most people are happy to see you when you turn up with a fire engine. And to have that job where the public are happy to see you and they want you there, that has so much value. Yeah. So it stemmed from watching my uncle do the job. And I went through phases as you do when you're young. Like I thought, oh, maybe I could be a doctor, but definitely not.
I was going to say, did that ever drop off? Because that must have been like when you were in primary school. Because I was the same. I wanted it when I was in primary school. And then I was like a teenager, and I think I went for a period of time. I wanted to be the strongest man in the world, and I went off on some rabbit hole of doing all those strongman competitions and stuff like that. And then, I just wanted to own gyms, and then I kind of fell back into it. Was when I was working as a lifeguard. I remember there would be used to a few firefighters used to come and swim, and they would put their alerters, their on-call firefighters, on the side of the pool, and then I would see it go off, and they would jump out the pool, and then you'd see them sprinting past the glass. Yeah. And then, a few minutes later, you'd hear the sirens, and I was kind of like, that's cool. So then I just kind of got chatting to them again. But you do forget about it for a little while, I always think, because it's a bit like saying you want to be an astronaut, and as much as people can also be astronauts, it's like you forget it's actually a real thing, and you could actually do that. But so what sort of age did you kind of rekindle that idea in your mind?
Oh, gosh, it must have been, I did apply as soon as I was 18. I applied for the on-call. So I went through like I'll be a doctor, or not smart enough, maybe I'll just settle for a nurse. So I've always wanted to do something that requires compassion and empathy, and like in the caring profession. But I also digressed and was like, I want to be a singer because I used to love singing. So went down like, maybe I could be a pop star. I do love singing. Yeah.
You never lose that. Those
I used to
arts, you
do
never lose them.
pantos. I love no, I still sing when I'm doing the checks or when we're doing station work. I put some tunes on and I'm singing in the appliance bay. The guys love it, especially when I put on the Disney princess songs and I sing along to those.
That honestly, right? So that's kind of one of my mini goals. You know, when you have little things you want to do. The one I think I would love is if I could be. I'd love to do like a rendition of Les Mis, and you know the guy who plays the Master of the House, that song. Because played by Sacha Baron Cohen in the most recent rendition of it, wasn't it? But I can't remember the character's name. But I would like to be that character, and I would like to stand on a stage and do that, even just if it's just local drama. Because I feel like I used to love amateur dramatics, like the vocal warm-ups, all that sort of stuff. I loved it. It was such an open, creative thing to be part of, and I don't want to lose it. I never kind of did it. I reckon I will end up being that 50-year-old guy who like finally does that little thing which you wanted to do as a kid. I'll digress, but sorry. Did you ever actually? Did you do any stuff?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I used to do a lot growing up. I did for my like GCSEs. I did drama. So I got involved in some productions like Blood Brothers. You heard of that one?
By I went down to London.
Willie Russell.
Love it.
Yeah, amazing production. So I did that, and I got to play Mrs. Johnstone and learn how to talk in a Liverpudlian accent, and had so much fun doing that and singing some of those songs.
What's your favorite musical?
Like Marilyn Monroe.
I know we're down a rabbit hole now, but
favorite musical. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I could pick. Les Mis is definitely up there.
Les Mis is strong. I went to go and see Wicked again though last year. Wicked is good.
I've not seen that yet.
Oh, there's some strong numbers. Defying Gravity and Wicked is a great number. Yeah, that is powerful for me. But it's actually a weird storyline. It's not really a traditional storyline, is it? Because it falls off the back of The Wizard of Oz. So it's not really a traditional storyline, but it's a great one. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I did I was into opera as well. Like I used to sing a bit of operetta, so light opera. So I was very much into the more serious side of the music world as well. Wow. And yeah, just loved opera. So yeah, I went through a phase of I want to be a pop star. No, I want to be a musical theatre star. No, I want to be an opera star. Then realized that actually it's a horrible world. I did some auditions to get into some top conservatoires, top musical schools. The auditions were horrible.
Really?
They weren't a very nice. Well, for me, it wasn't a very nice experience. You were just, no one was your friend. You were there in competition with each other, fighting out to be the best. And there was no teamwork. There was no let's do this together. Good luck. Let's have some fun with this.
One of my exes, didn't like that. And they were real purists. Do you know what I mean? It's really cutthroat. It's very cold environments. And I have two friends who are professional ballet dancers even now in their 30s. And even now they're like, it's just you. There's no friendships. There's no love lost. It's just be the best. If you get injured, it just fucking sucks. You know, the train's got to move on. The performance, the production, it's all about that. And if you have an injury or if you've got a sore throat or whatever, that's why we have seconds. You know, that's why we have understudies.
Yeah. I didn't like that. I'm competitive. I enjoy healthy competition, but I'm also really soft, so I don't like it. I like to have friends.
Yeah.
I like to have support around me. I don't want to be
Isn't there a difference between when we say competitive aspects,
jumping in someone else's place if they're ill?
Yeah. When we look at the arts.
Say that again.
When we look at the arts, there's a different thing when we say competitive, because I'm competitive in sport and stuff, and I enjoy that because often in sport it's very win lose, but I mean it's an obvious if you and I have a race and you're faster than me, then you're just faster than me. But when it comes to the arts, it's very opinion based, so we take it so very personally. If you're faster than me, you're just faster than me. I don't feel as bad about it because you're just faster. But if someone says you're a better singer, you're a better dancer, you're more beautiful, whatever it might be, it becomes very personal with the arts, I always thought.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does. It cut me down. Yeah, it was, yeah, I soon got put off the idea when I entered into that world, tried a few auditions. I even went to Italy. I did a year off, went to Italy, learned Italian because it's the most beautiful language in the world, and it's the most beautiful language to sing in as well. I loved Italian opera, so went there, really committed, learned how to speak Italian. Went to music school in Italy and sang some great arias in Italian and came back all full of energy, like, yeah, I can do this. And then again, I was just like, oh, it's just not the world I want to be in. I don't want to be surrounded by people that as soon as you fall ill or if, as soon as you're not good enough, someone else jumps in your place. Like, I want to be valued. I want to do something that's worthwhile. So I yeah, tried again for the fire service. So I tried at 18, failed, didn't pass the fitness test.
Really?
So I was gutted. Yeah, heartbreaking. I did all the sports growing up. I used to play in all the boys' teams because the girls' teams weren't competitive enough for me. And really like my family business, we do like marquee hire. So I'd always be out with my dad when I was 15, 16, carrying all bits of aluminium on my shoulder and carrying all the big heavy rooftops and stuff. Just didn't like physical activity.
What aspect of it did you struggle with?
I had So I failed the section of the test where you carry the equipment and you do the shuttle runs.
Yeah.
So I was a few seconds short of passing that. I think what it was for me, doing it in the PPE, I struggled with. One, because what I was wearing was far too big for me.
I was going to say that's so often a case for female firefighters. The boots are sized.
Yeah.
Oh, the smallest we've got is a 10. You're like, well, that's not fair. Yeah, because this stuff's falling off me.
I'm a 4.5. Like,
yeah. Well, I just put an extra pair of socks on. No, that's not fair.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Yeah. So yeah, I struggled. I failed, and I was gutted, absolutely gutted, because I was like, yeah, fresh out of like college, and thought, yeah, I'm still not 100% sure what I want to do, but I definitely will join the on-call because I've seen my uncle do it, and I want to give back to the community, the wonderful community that I've grown up in. And then I didn't get in. I was just like, oh, they don't want me. They don't want me.
What did your Uncle G say about it? Gutted. I bet you felt terrible, bless you.
Yeah, he was like, oh, don't worry, Leanne, you could try again. It's not everyone passes first time. Yeah. But to start with, I was like, had the hump a little bit. But I thought after a while, once I got over like my hump, I thought, actually, I'm very young. I've got no real life experience behind me. I'm fresh out of college. I am sporty. I am physically fit. But strength doesn't come naturally to me. So perhaps that is something I need to work on. So I went away. This is when I did my Italian trip. So I saved a load of money. I did loads of random jobs. I worked in a care home. I then became like a community carer. I went out to people's houses. I had a job in a garden centre. I just did anything to earn a little bit of money, and then I went away traveling for a bit. And I came back in a whole different mind frame. I was a much more confident person. I had a lot more faith in myself, a lot more worldly experience behind me. I knew what I needed to do to pass the test. So I would be going to the gym. I'd be practicing my strength training. I'd be keeping up my running as I would normally do anyway. And I went back to do this test again. And I had this little, when you've done something before, you failed it, and it's like a hurdle you've got to get over.
Yeah, it's a mental blocker. You're just oh
yeah,
God,
a mental
God.
blocker. Yeah. So I went back and I forced myself to do it because I really wanted to be in the fire service. And
even after all that traveling, it hadn't completely gone.
Yeah, no,
That's great.
I still wanted to do it. Yeah, still the passion was still in me. I went back and did everything else, passed it as I did the first time anyway, and then it got to the last bit, which was this carry test, and the nerves were butterflies from my belly, like, oh God, can I do this?
Did they put you in
I knew I
stupid
could do
again?
it because I'd been. I've been practicing. Yeah. So back in the kit. There were some people there who recognized me from 3 years ago, because this was when I was 21.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, they were like, "Oh, this you tried joining a few years ago, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." Yeah. So they for the firefighters there that were doing the test were like, "Wow, this girl's come back 3 years later and she wants to do it again. Like she really wants it." So they all got behind me. So when it came to this carry test, I had pretty much all of the staff there. Even it was done on a station, so I had some of the guys on the station come out to watch me do it. So I felt the pressure, but also I felt like I need to perform.
100%.
So I did
They're on
it
your
and I
team. They want to
passed.
see you win. They want to see you succeed.
Yeah, they were on my team. Yeah, yeah, and it felt amazing. And afterwards, they were all like high five me and like, "Oh my God, that's brilliant! Good luck for the next steps."
Did you think yourself, yeah, that's it, I'm on the truck. Let's go. Where's my locker?
Yeah, yeah. I was like,
this is it. I'm on the team now.
I'm ready.
And they're like, no, take the kit off. You go home now.
Yeah, that was a real big moment. Yeah, yeah. And then I had to drive like in 2 hours to get back home, and then the process started. Then the real long, lengthy process of doing all the medical tests. And
so, did you have the interviews
like
first or last, or where were the interviews for you?
Last. Interview
Okay.
was last, so you got to pass all of the elements first. And then
some people find the interview to be the hardest part, with all the different personal qualities and attributes, and the different. Sometimes they have different national standards. Can you recall any of what? Because I suppose you did this twice. Because did you have to do another one for the whole time?
Yeah, I've done this twice. Yeah.
So how were the interview processes for you, and how did they change at all?
So the biggest hurdle for the on-call when I was 21 was that carry test. The interview was really personal because they're looking for staff who want to work for their community. So I'm a big community person. I love where I live. I love supporting people around me. So I came through quite well at the interview for the on-call role, but then for the whole time role, it was a whole different kettle of fish. It was all based on the NFCC framework. I basically had a whole folder of notes of every point about leading yourself, leading others, representing the service. I can't remember all of them, but I had examples, and this whole like portfolio that I studied, and how I can answer the questions, or what possible questions I might have, and how I can get the little points in in the NFCC framework. So it was like a tick box exercise. So it was less about the whole time process, less about me personally. It was more about
that annoys me,
ticking boxes and saying the right thing.
Yeah, it really annoys me, because I feel like there's a few things there, like a huge compliment to you, and not to become like stereotypical, but I do find women are far better at preparing for these types of things. And there's an irony behind that, because some people like say, "Oh, more guys than." I'm like, women try much harder, to be honest, with the fitness test and with the interviews and stuff like that. They seem to have a more professional approach to things. I don't know why that is. Maybe we'll go back into that in a minute. But the frustration for me is around the lack of personal based aspect to some of the whole time recruitments. And it is a case where if you can just remember a lot of the points, and you remember a lot of the positive indicators, and you structure it in a situation, task, action, result, and and then your outcomes, your lessons learned and stuff like that. But ultimately you can still end up with the wrong people, because you can game that. You can just not cheat, but you can just trick it. And I think, there's something about that like, I've given lots of interviews, and I ask all sorts of random questions, and like, I've been taken off interview panels before because they're like, you need to stick to the script. And I'm like,
we don't care if they have a German Shepherd dog, okay?
It's like, people can lie to me on the script. And I've said to people before, but like, I think this person's giving an example, and I don't think it's their example. Because they could say, sometimes to tick the boxes, they can say, they're like, yeah, I used to work at McDonald's and I rescued 27 babies, and I can't go and check that. There's no way for me, but if you tick the positive indicators. But sorry, I digress. So you put a lot of prep into it.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying, because it's, even though a lot of people will want to do the job, but it's not a job for everyone.
No, it's not.
You can't just pass. You can't. I feel like the services these days are are trying to tick boxes, get the right statistics, get the right percentages of different types of people. I can say that because I'm a woman, and they want to increase only 7.5% of firefighters across the country are women. So there's not many of us. So if you're a woman, you're like, well, hey, big tick. But it's like, well, no, I am like one of the boys, and I want to be better than the boys.
Yes.
That's what the service needs, not just, oh yeah, she's a woman, so yeah, that'll be a good stat for the end of the year. I think the fire service has definitely lost track of your personal qualities and attributes, and interviews have moved away from who you are and why do you want to do this job, rather than
thing,
rather than like, oh yeah, I did this experience, or I've got this qualification. And I feel that that's come all the way up to the watch rooms, where when you're around the mess table, and years ago you used to all really gel well together because you're all there for the same reason, because you really wanted to do the job. Whereas now some people are doing it for, I'll do the job for 10 years or so, I'm going to get this on my CV, I'm going to do this service, and then I'm going to move on to something else, rather than someone that really, really wants it. And then there's a divide then. You don't get that gel as a watch, that teamwork. I think, and it all stems right back down to that recruitment process. I actually, I tried to apply in 2018 for whole time, and failed the process, even though I've been in for what, 7 odd years on call already.
What did you struggle with that time?
So that time it was the process. I failed the maths test. So
that sounds surprising.
I don't like maths. So we did you do the application, and then once you get past that stage, you do a series of, there was a maths test, an English test, and a mechanical test.
Mechanical reasoning one.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I was fine with mechanical reasoning, fine with the English, but the maths test, blooming heck, you needed a maths degree to pass this test. It was impossible. It was really hard. So I didn't pass, and I got frustrated because I was like, well, I'm doing the job already.
There's
and just because
I'm not
about
smart, that, isn't there? Yeah. What do you think? Like, should all on call be able to naturally migrate once they pass their not naturally, but like, should they be given like, I don't know, like preferential? Because like, if you did just look at it from a business case, well, actually, there's a few things there. Like, I've already trained you, so I've already spent a lot of money on you anyway, so you're a bit of a bargain. But also, there is unfortunately a lot of data about when people become whole time, they stop doing on call. There is a lot of data about that, and I don't know whether that's just correlation or causation or whatever. I don't know, but I know, for example, I did on call for 10 years, and now I don't do it. Because I'd just done that period of my life. I still did it when I joined whole time. I did it for quite a number of more years, like maybe another 3 or 4 years. But then also I wanted to do the podcast, and I wanted to do other traveling stuff. So it's like, I don't know. What do you feel about it?
I still do my on call. I've been whole time for 2 and a bit years now. I love my on call. I really do. The guys that I work with in my rural village are fantastic, and every drill night, whenever I get to go to drill night, it's a barrel of laughs. It's a load of fun. We get the job done. We do the training we need to do. We have a cup of tea at the end of the night. Someone usually brings cake because we have great partners in the background who support us and send us to fire drills with cake.
Love it.
And it's no chore at all.
Well, it runs on passion, doesn't it? Because the on-call or retained or whatever people call it, wherever they are, the pay is pretty terrible. And I know they're looking at a lot, and that's why they're struggling so much with recruitment. We're actually having a guy, Steve Sadler, who has ran a big national on-call RDS. They come up with a few ways to make on-call more appealing to people, and they manage the availability differently, and they work with Fire Service Rota, is another company we've had on the podcast, and basically they're making on-call much more flexible, and they're making it more rewarding in terms of pay. Do you think like we should still be doing it by how many calls you get, or do you think it should be salaried? Or because pay is not the only reason why it's tough, but it does run on passion, because you give, I think like around where I live, you have to give a minimum of 60 hours. It might be slightly less now, but it's massive, especially if you've got a family or a partner or a dependent or something like that.
Yeah, it's I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. For me, it's community driven, and you've got to be that type of person that wants to be putting yourself out there for the community. And you're not going to find those people through paying them more money. But I've seen across my service, the retain is very different. So in my area, I'm from a very small village. So we were a standalone on-call fire station, where my whole-time fire station, there is a on-call unit attached to it. Okay. So we've got one whole-time pump and one on-call pump. And that on-call group is very different to my experience of on-call, because they're second to the job, so they're supporting the whole time. So they're not.
Also, it's not their station. So that happened at my on-call station. We used to have both trucks to ourselves as on-call, and then they made one of them whole time, and the whole dynamic shifted. There's some better stuff, because you can join the whole time for drills and you can do more training.
But I definitely missed out on that.
You don't get as much operational exposure. You're not the incident commander very much. Things do change a little bit.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and you've got to take the positives out of it. So I was very envious when I first joined and did my first on-call course. I was with some of those people from stations with the whole time attached to them, and they motored on through their development, because they had the support. They were going down to station. They had people who were very experienced, who worked at training center, and they were there running some of their drills. Whereas my lot, I was the first one to join in 10 years. And none of them really had a clue about a development firefighter. And what do we do with her?
7 o'clock on a drill night, dusting off the old books out the fog. Right, Leanne, it says, bloody hell, what are they doing now? Oh, we didn't do that when I joined. Christ.
No, that's what it was like for me. Yeah, so very different. And so I think when it comes to the on-call recruitment and how you pay people to do this job, it's a very difficult subject. But for me,
it's really difficult. Nationally, it's a problem but not for everyone. So struggling to solve, especially actually ironically, like, and we won't share where you live, but I know you live in a nice rural community. It's actually harder in rural communities, because people that live in rural communities live in houses that, you couldn't get a house there for less than 400,000, 500,000 pounds probably. Yeah. So people like that maybe travel into London, and their time off is their time off. So you will struggle to recruit anybody locally there, because they're all earning 90 grand.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In my case, I couldn't afford to buy in the village I live in, so I had to build a house, because that was a lot cheaper than buying. But I managed to do it because I actually had support of the local fire station. Some of the local firefighters and the station commander wrote letters to the planning authority and said that we need on-call. And at the time, I was already on call in a bigger town, so that we want Leanne to come and she would join us our whole time, and that really helped. And my planning application got passed through quite quickly. I'm sort of committed as well. So
needs,
maybe we could go down that route. Say that if you want to join, you can have planning permission to build a house, but you've got to be on call for 10 years.
Yeah, well, and that's what I mean. Like, there's always one way to skin a cat, and like sometimes I think we don't necessarily got to pay people more, but if you could give them, because they want to serve the community, so can you find a way for the community to serve them? Like, can you not give them special exemptions, but just like, I don't know, I don't know, help them with their council tax. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I feel like there's more creative ways that we could be going about this, and I'm excited to speak to Steve soon, because we're going to have to sort the problem out. We're going to have, because it's really coming up on us, and we're being lucky now, because like your station, just to stay on that for a second, like there's a lot of members there that will probably come up for retirement very soon, And we're at this stage in a lot of UK fire and rescue service. We're going to lose a lot. We're losing a lot of people already through retirement. We're going to lose even more over the next 5 or 10 years. At on-call stations, it's going to be hard to replace them. Very hard.
Very much so.
So we need to have an answer for that. But sorry, it's something I'm really passionate about. Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and well-being. Whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services, we get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive weight or a one-size-fits-all BS. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show.
Yeah, me too. There's a real divide in the sense that the older boys on my station, they are so reliable, so committed, and when that letter goes off, they drop everything, and their poor wives and families behind are like, oh, but they just get used to it, and they're incredible. Like the supporting family behind the on-call people are incredible. But we've also got a few younger people on the station as well. But it's different. Like they're providing the absolute minimum hours they can possibly do because they've got a wife and children, and they've got commitments, and when it's the weekend they want to do stuff with the family. Whereas years ago it wasn't so much a thing that your weekend, your parents are still working, or your dad's or your mum they're still on call. There isn't a whole I guess it's a bit of a social media impact that, oh, I need that, we're going to take the family out, we're going to have a day out, and then we're going to take photos and put it on Instagram, rather than like, oh, I've had a boring
now
weekend.
Like, oh, we've got to go to the cinemas, or we've got to go out to the Lake District, and I love doing those things. But there's less like, we're just going to go for a walk in the park, we're going to go into town, and that's all the stuff I used to do when I was on call. Whereas now it's like, can we go to the next nearest city to go shopping? And it's like, oh, it's a fucking... it's a different mentality these days, I think. It is.
It's more about you're working to live rather than living to work. Like, my father, for instance, he will work every day of his life if he could, if he didn't have us behind him saying, oh, please can you take us out, or please can we do this? But he'd quite happily work every day. And likewise, some of the guys on the station, some of them are even farmers, so they have to work every day. They're not bothered about going away or having that weekend away. They're quite happy staying on call and constantly working, and then they will get that one holiday a year. It's very the lifestyle has changed, and it doesn't suit the on call anymore.
I don't think it suits a lot of society in general, to be honest. I think there's a lot of things that start to fall off the edge of the table as we transition away from this idea of supporting our communities. That's I mean, now, I live in a cul-de-sac. Sometimes you don't even know everybody in the flipping cul-de-sac anymore. I remember you used to be able to walk out and just know everybody, a lot of the people in the cul-de-sac are significantly older than me and my wife. So we kind of look after everybody a little bit, take their bins in for them. And if they get a delivery of something, or they need to get rid of something out of the house, I'll go and lift it out for them. And you kind of look after everybody. But then there's a few new couples have moved in, which is absolutely fine. But like they're not interested in anybody. They're living
their life, privately on their own, not integrating with the community, and that's really common here too. I think, it's a real shame. a real shame.
That's why when we go to things like it sounds weird, but like illicit drugs dens or things like that, people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that's on whatever street," and I'm like, "You don't even know what's happening next door anymore."
No,
you know what I mean. You have not got a bloody clue what is going on your street, and that is really worrying. You know, it's almost like we've never been so connected yet never been so isolated. We've never lived in so many condensed communities yet never felt so alone for so many people.
And that's exactly why us as firefighters need to be open and public, and we need to know our community around us. We need to talk to people and be open and kind and honest and be who we are. Here, we're still holding on to that community base. So I can walk down to the local shop or to the local pub on my own, and it'll take me an hour because I've stopped and talking to people and saying hello and having a chat and catching up on, oh, how's Auntie Barbara, or it's still there. It's not quite like what it used to be growing up in my town. My mum would quite happily let me and my sisters walk on my own to my Uncle G's. And so we walked down the streets. It was a fair walk, to be fair, but she's quite happy because she knows everyone in the community will say, oh, they're the playgirls, and they must be walking to Uncle Gary's, and they'll all say hello, and she knows that someone will get in touch with her if there's something wrong. But now, God, you wouldn't let children walk on their own through the town somewhere.
I try and do it more and more. So my youngest is now 10, but I've also got a 15-year-old and a 21-year-old. So like, especially with my youngest, I try and, even for the last 2 years, she's been walking to school. So she has to walk through an estate, across a park, and then through another estate, and she's in school and she'll walk with her friends. But I still think, and I know a lot of people will hear that and just like, oh my God, so few kids get snatched every day. It really doesn't happen. She has a mobile phone. Because like, there's a quote I heard a long time ago that made me think like, do you want your children to be safe or do you want them to be strong? And strong, I don't mean like muscle bound. I just mean like, do you want them to have street smart? Do you want them to be able to speak to people and build rapport and just have a bit of social awareness so that they don't put themselves into bad situations? And I always say that to them when we're like walking through the park. I'm like, okay, close your eyes. Who's in the park? And she'll be like, okay, there's a guy over there. Because you should just be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
You should know if someone's 20 meters behind you. Not be scared of them, but just be aware and just think, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take the next turn because I don't need to be in this environment anymore. And that's all you need to do sometimes. Because some people are just so fixated on their phones, I think, that they're not even present. Like that. They're the people. I think some people make themselves volunteer victims in certain situations because they're just so oblivious to life.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah, I think going back to the community, that's really important. But for young people to feel like there's that stigma, isn't there? If you say, oh no, you're not allowed to walk home on your own, then instantly they'll be like, oh, why not? And they get nervous about it when they don't need to be.
Why do you think we've got a growing sort of distrust in communities now? Because I know trust and teamwork and those values. In fact, something you were saying then, like people will identify with you and the other on-call people as a firefighter, but some people don't like being held to a certain standard when they're not on duty, which I think I'm like, we shouldn't be hiring that person anyway.
No,
if they only want to behave well when they're at work. I want somebody that's got a certain type of moral compass, like they're going to do the right thing, whether they're wearing a uniform or not. And you should be. That's why I feel like
absolutely. When I was at training centre, I went into the shop in my uniform, and someone said, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." I was like, "Oh, why not? I'm proud. Look at me. I'm a firefighter. I'm well proud. I'll wear it out if I wanted to.
I wear it everywhere." Anyway, I'm like, because I love it.
Yeah, oh no, you can't do that. Like, oh, well, why not? I said, oh, because you can't. I can't remember what the reasons were, but it was discouraged that we. Well,
everyone assumes you're going to take the service into disrepute. It's all born out of fear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I like to be identified as a member of the emergency services so that people think of you as something that's safe. Like if someone's in trouble and they're looking around and they're like, oh, this person will help me because they stand for something. Viscerally, I know if they're a first responder, then you would make these assumptions that this person is trustworthy. They whatever might know first aid. They could help me. I feel vulnerable. Yeah. This is someone of safety, and we should all be like that, no matter where we are. If we're a first responder,
100%. I think every firefighter would want that. They would want someone to turn to them if they needed the help. But how are they going to know if we're all hiding behind our normal clothes and not allowed to post who we are on social media, or not allowed to talk to people in the community, or I don't know. I feel very passionately about being open and being honest and being who you are and being proud of what you do. And I'm a big community person as well. It's really important. Like, I love doing the school visits. I love it. There was one time where I was walking through my village, and it was not long after we had a group come to the station, and we showed them around, and this one little girl, I half recognized her from the school and gave her a wave, said, "Oh, good morning," as you try to engage with people as you're on the morning school run or whatever. And as I went past, she was like, "Oh, Mommy, that's the girl who was at the fire station. That's the firefighter." And I was just like, "Oh,
how good does that feel?"
That's so cute. It does feel really good, and I felt really proud. And when it was nice for the little girl as well to look up and see, "Oh yeah, she's a female firefighter, and she's really cool." And to associate that, ladies can do it too.
It means a lot from kids, digress. But I also feel like it means a strange thing from parents as well, especially given the fact that they know we don't get paid a lot. But like, there'll be an irony of, like, you know, if you ever go to parents' days and stuff like that, there'll be the guy that owns the multi-million-pound construction business. No one cares. It's like, my mom's a firefighter, or my dad's, or my auntie, or my uncle, and people are like, wow. And even the parents sometimes, and it's not about adulation or, inflating your own ego, but they're like, I know your working conditions aren't fantastic, but you've obviously got such a moral commitment in some way or reason or why that you do that thing. And for me, it's like, some people will laugh at it, and some people that are maybe slightly smarter economically than me will think, dude, it's just not worth it, But I'm like, romantically though, I just feel like it stands for more than that. Yeah, it really does. And that's kind of the whole point of the podcast. I think what's happened culturally is we've just kind of forgotten a little bit about what it stands for, because people don't share their experiences as much as we've moved into this digital age, and services have got so scared about people doing things wrong. We've kind of started to hide what we do, and we've accidentally lost a little bit of pride with it, because we've stopped being proud of our people. We've stopped talking about them a little bit, and we are definitely heading back in the other direction, which is good. And the show you were part of is a perfect example of that, but got a long way to go.
Oh yeah, completely, yeah. And I feel like stemming back again to that recruitment process is getting those people that are passionate and really want to do the job, rather than, "Oh, I want to be a hero. I can do this. I'm macho," or I don't know, that sort of mentality that they're doing it for themselves rather than for their community. So that's the difference I've found between the on-call and the whole time, is that the on-call, everyone who does it is doing it to provide that asset in their local community, because otherwise we're going to be waiting half an hour, 30 minutes for the nearest fire engine to come, or the nearest defibrillator to come. But the whole time attitude is a bit more, it's a career choice. You've chosen that career, so you're a bit more selfish. And unfortunately, the side effect of that is there's a lack of passion and that community drive, or even how do I word this? You're not a team member. You're an individual. Working with a team, and then when the opportunity comes, you're going to ditch your team, and you're going to take that promotion. Or even if your team doesn't think you're ready for that promotion, but you want it, so you're going for it.
That second one is something I really struggle with. So, like, in the service that I currently work for, I think the biggest failure, when people say, "Oh, how did so and so get that job? His team hates him," or like, "He's a crap firefighter," And often it's because a lot of managers struggle having uncomfortable conversations and they fear repercussions. Like if I said to you, and well, it's different for you because you've kind of like got an emotional intelligence. But if you were, and I said to you, Leanne, I don't think you're quite ready for it, and here's some of the reasons. I want to see you engage more with the team. I want to see you develop other people on the team. I want to see you do things when you're not asked to do them. I want to see you turning up on time. I want to see you 5 minutes early for parade. And why? I don't have to do that. Show me in my job description where it says I need to help other people. Well, I mean, I could do that if you wanted me to, because there is an aspect in there about developing others. But then we're into an altercation. We're into an argument. There's less people are willing to be mentored, maybe, and they do exactly what the contract says and what it has to say. And if it says I can go for promotion and I think I'm ready for it, that's why I love things like 360 feedback, but a lot of places don't really do them. They don't have, I'd love feedback from 4 members of your team, from somebody from a different station that works on the same watch, from your line manager, from a member of the community educators that you've worked with. And on a scale of 10, how competent is Leanne? How trustworthy is Leanne? Do you think Leanne cares about you as a person? How much is she as a good listener? Does she practice the morals? Is she trustworthy? Things like this. I would love that and make it anonymous, because people might go, oh yeah, but if everybody hates Leanne, then they're just going to score her badly. Well, if everybody hates Leanne, Leanne,
who's going to
probably because Leanne's probably not a nice person. If one person gives her terrible marks, then that person's a dick and obviously doesn't like Leanne, and fair enough. But on average, you'll find out how much is this person trusted, because otherwise we do put people in positions that they're not ready for, and they do emotional or morale damage. They might say, oh, but I've got the right qualifications. But you're like, yeah, but no one trusts you, or no one thinks you've got any authenticity. But it's hard for people to write that down because they're so fearful of, well, that's your opinion, Leanne. It's just you saying that. So that's a very sticky area. And I think that clouds a lot of the whole time in it.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I think, and then once that person moves forward without the support of the people around them, you then lose that respect, and that respect is so important to have. Your watch commander, your station commander, or even your SMBs or your LMBs above you. If you don't respect that person, there's gonna be a load of negativity from those decisions coming down. You're not gonna take, if someone's made a decision and you don't agree with it, but you like that person, you're like, well, that person, well, there's probably, you can reason with them and you can talk to them and you can try and understand the decision you made. But if you don't like them in the first place, you don't like the decision they made, instantly there's loads of negativity and hatred, and it's a horrible environment to be in.
You fill the gaps yourself with either optimism or pessimism. Because if I like you and you make a decision, I'm like, well, you know what? I'll wait till I see Leanne, because I'm sure there's probably some rationale in her head behind that. I don't quite understand it on the face of it, but you know what? She's a pretty good egg. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you don't have respect or trust somebody, and the same decision is made with the same rationale, but you don't understand it to start with, and you go, yeah, but Leanne's a horrible person. You know what? She probably did it for herself. She's that sort of person. You know what? I bet she did it just to spite us. And you're like, you don't know. It's the same scenario, but you don't respect that person, or you haven't had a great relationship with them. So as much as people say, well, that shouldn't matter, but it does matter. It's going to matter. Really, we're human beings. We're not just metrics.
Yeah. So I was lucky. I came into the service and I had a station commander who stayed with me for pretty much my 10 years of the on-call.
Wow.
And he was a real inspiration to me, because he genuinely cared about me from my first day on station, or my first fire shout, or if there was something happening at home. He generally wanted to know what's wrong, how can I help you, what can I do about it. And also there was an element of professionalism as well, like, how's your development going, what areas do we need to focus on, what do you need me to organize. And he was like that with everyone. He'd come to drill nights, and he'd talk around to everybody, ask how each other's are. He would ask my crew commander, like, "Oh, how's your wife, Tiffany?" And I'm like, "Oh, is that what she's called?" Like he knew everybody and he looked
That's a big
after
thing.
everybody, and then he batted away all the shit coming down from up
Mm.
above, all the politics,
Yeah.
battered all that away. So all we had to do was focus on our job, and he protected us, and he cared about us, and he was passionate about us. And then when he left, there was a big hole, and we felt like, oh, we're not cared about anymore. And no one's concerned about us. And then we were getting some decisions from up above that we weren't aware of or were happening, that we were protected from previously. Um, and then it made us angry, and we disagreed with what they were saying. And
Mm.
it he was a real role model for me. Just the way that he focused his job on the people who worked beneath him over his own gain, his own.
Yeah.
He wasn't a station commander because he wanted the money or he wanted that promotion. He was there because he wanted to look after people beneath us, and he was an older guy, so he'd worked up the ladder. So he'd done firefighter, crew commander, watch commander, and then he got to station commander, and he was quite happy there. He was like, "Yeah,
Mm.
I'm going to stay here." I'd imagine he could have gone all the way, but he he didn't want to. He was
Mm.
losing touch with people. He was very much a people person, um, and that element is going. There's not so many people there that know all of your names, and know your partner and know your dog.
Well, because you
um,
do have to sacrifice in this day and age, as I'm finding so much, in order to do that, which is something I'm very passionate about. You do have to sacrifice the other material, quote unquote, success, if that's what you term as success. Now, because the
yeah,
problem is most of
yeah,
us term success as how quickly do you climb the ranks, how much money do you earn, and all that sort of stuff. But it's kind of, again, the whole point of the podcast is it's like, how do you want to be remembered? Do you know what I mean? What will people say after they've had an interaction with you? And when I think about that, when I think about the soft skills that I'm so passionate about, I'm not saying I'm good or bad at them at all, but like it's something I'm really passionate about, because you can spout lyrical about all the things you know, and you can quote all the Fire Service Act and all that sort of stuff, but people don't. I always remember someone telling me a long time ago, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And that's
yeah.
so important. Do you know what I mean? If
That's
you
lovely.
know
Yeah,
somebody's name and you know their family and you know what they're interested in, and you're like, hey, how was the trip down to Newquay the other week? How did it go?
yeah,
Yeah. And then you go to an incident and they go, hey, boss, what's the, what sort of cordon should we be putting in here? And you're like, I'm really not sure, mate. Let's go and check the sheet.
let's have a
They'll be
look.
like, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. But if you're a dick, yeah,
yeah,
and you go there and they go, what's the thing? And you're like, oh, they'll be like, he doesn't even fucking know. He's useless. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I haven't got a
yeah,
personal connection with
definitely.
you because you haven't put the time in. You've not put the
Yeah,
time in to have a personal connection with me, and you'd rather be right than be part of the team. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? It's
yeah,
like marriage, isn't it? You're like, do you want to be right all the time or do you want to be happy? Because you can't be both.
yeah,
If you want to
yeah,
be right all the time, then you're going to have to sacrifice that relationship a little bit. And I
yeah,
think there's a big aspect of that. And you're right. We just hemorrhage those soft skills. We focus on the hard skills of the qualifications and the tick boxes,
yeah,
and yeah, that has to be born in the watches though. It has to come from the ground up. And we also have
yeah,
to accept the fact that those people are probably never going to get much further than station or group commander. I have
mhm,
met one or two
yeah,
chiefs with really, really strong emotional intelligence, but it's rare. It's
yeah,
very rare. And if it happens at all, it's usually happened later on
mhm,
when they go through. There's a senior leadership development program. There's like a man in the mirror course that some of them go on at the Fire Service College, and a lot of it there's a lot of self-reflection involved in it, and a lot of them have a lot of wonderful breakthroughs, to be fair, but like sometimes a lot of the damage is already done then. That's why when
mhm,
they're assistant chief or something, they'll transfer to another service because sometimes they've just
yeah,
ran out of people that like them or trust them,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
sad.
yeah. I'm aware of that. Yeah,
So, we spoke so much there about trust and teamwork. Speak to me
yeah.
about some of the stuff, why that's so important to you, and how you see some of the most effective teams that you've been with
Yeah.
working.
For me, an example of like teamwork that I've really experienced and figured out that actually it works and it's better to stay as a team. Um, we did we did the Three Peaks Challenge with my on-call unit,
Love it.
and it was a great experience. It took a lot of planning and preparation and training. But when we did it at a time where lots of other groups were doing it. It was organised by the Firefighters charity. So we were we went up the mountain together and came down the mountain together. Whereas there are teams that were separating. Some were quicker, some were more like elites than others in their teams. They were leaving those members behind. And by the end of it, you could see teams staggered all the way across mountains. So our team stayed together. If someone was struggling, we would hang back, we would help that person struggling. No matter what your ability or your fitness or what injury you've got, we stood together and stayed together and we completed the challenge together. We didn't win. And we
Depends what you think the
it.
metric is.
Yeah, and
when someone says, "Oh, we won," and you go, "What was the metric?" And they go, "Well, we completed it in the fastest time." Oh, okay. So sorry, we thought we won because we had the greatest time as a team. So I thought that we
exactly. Won. Yeah, and that meant the world to me. That we all stuck together and did it together, and you get those individuals that are stronger and are better, and want to go forward. But it's those people that you need to hang back to actually, come on, let me carry your bag. I'll carry your bag. Let's do this together. I think that's so important in the fire service, because when you're on the instant ground, you need to have confidence in your OIC. You need that OIC needs to be strong, but you need to believe in them and trust that their decisions they're making are the best decision at the time. And you need to trust that you're wearing BA, you're in a job, and you're number two, so you've not got control of the branch. But you need to trust that that team member is not going to leave you behind. That number one is going to control that fire, or he's going to be you're a bit disorientated, but that number one stayed on the wall. They know exactly where you are. You need to rely on each other. Reliability. You need to, that trust. You need to trust the pump operator who's outside, so that they're doing their job properly and making sure that you got water at the end of that branch. It's everywhere across the fire ground. It's all about that teamwork and that trust, and it's not leaving someone behind. It's not being the hero. It's not, I'm going to run into this building and get that child, pull that child out on my own. It's about, right, when we get there, pump op needs to set up. You need to set up the fire ground. You need to make sure we've got water to the branch. We need to test the branch. We need to go in together. The OIC by that point has to make the right decision about which door are we going in. Is it safe for us to go in? What tactical ventilation are we going to use? And it's that whole teamwork that makes the rescue. It's not the individual. And
you have to trust all of those observations, because you're only going to be able to see a very small part of what's happening here. And it's the same for us. I mean, it's the same for the incident commander. I can look at everything, but I'm then going to ask you to go through that door. And when you're through the door, I'm not going to control over what you're doing. I've got to trust that you're going to look after yourself. You're going to do the thing that I asked you to do. If something changes in there, you're going to let me know. Do you know what I mean? And the person that I've asked to look after you, the entry control officer, the pump operator, the person chucking the vent around the other side, I'm going to trust all of those people to look after you. And it's petrifying sometimes, because you think, and you see that so much with new incident commanders, where they forget that most firefighters are competent, and you become an incident commander and you suddenly think no one else can do their job. So you're like micromanaging the hell out of everybody. Definitely. And that's the worst thing to do as an incident commander, because they're like, you know what, if you stayed on the truck, we'd probably put this thing out by ourselves anyway. So we don't, you don't need an incident commander come in and micromanaging everything you do.
Yeah, don't be a dick. I think, you really need to rely on each other in your team. Like, even if you know that I have my weaknesses, I'm not the best at lifting the spreaders and the cutters at jobs. But the guys know that if I'm the only person there that has to do that job, that I can do it and I will do it. But that you've got to rely on each other, and you've got to trust each other, that trust that they can do the job as well, and not take the job away from you. It's really the processes at the moment, the whole tick box exercise thing, not the best people come through, and there's a lack of ability. Some people think they can do it, but actually they think they can do it, so they don't train, they don't drill, they don't practice. Or in the fire service now, we're doing more home fire safety checks than we are drilling out on the ground. And it's I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but it's that respect, that communication, that honesty, that reliability is so key when you're in those high pressured scenarios. That those are things we don't practice and we need to do more of.
Yeah. Even doing tabletop exercises and stuff like that, and holding people accountable for certain jobs. They haven't got to take hours and hours and hours. But I think those things are so very, very, very important when you're looking at the different dynamics within a team. What do you find is some of the hardest parts of the job?
Oh, for me, it was all amazing and wonderful and the best job in the world until I came across my first fatality. That was hard hitting. I remember my fatality was a HDV versus a car. So it wasn't a great result for the chap in the car. And I was quite new into the job. So my OIC said, right, I want you in trauma care. Where we live, you're waiting a good half an hour for the nearest ambulance to come. So I was faced with this dude, and he wasn't in a great way. And that was really, really hard because I did what I could. I did what I thought I could. And he didn't make it. And he had this wedding ring on his hand. So I just had this thing in my head. I said, oh my God, like, what else could I have done? Or I'm not knowledgeable enough. I don't know enough. I could have done something differently, or I should have picked up on those signs that he had this like catastrophic bleed out of his neck, so his chances weren't great anyway. But it was horrible. It was a horrible situation. I thought about it for a long time. What could I have done differently? And that's one of the hardest parts of the job, is after you deal with the incident and you come home and you're thinking through, like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I think of that? There was another situation where we were on our way to a fatality, and we heard the first informative from our nearest on-call station, and they said that they were performing CPR. Again, no sign of an ambulance or a doctor anywhere near. They were waiting for us because they had 3 casualties, only 1 defibrillator, and they were having to choose who they were going to put it on. And at the time, I was riding in charge of our fire engine, and there was a road closure. They were tarmacking the main road to get to the incident. So we instead, I knew the road. They knew they were doing road works, and I knew that they were tarmacking. So I made the decision, the early call, to say, right, we're going to go around the diversion before we even get to that road closure, because I know we're not going to be able to get through. And then you could hear the panic in the informative message that they're working on people and it's really severe, and like, where the fuck is the next on-call unit? Because they know we're going to be 10 minutes, if less. They know, they rely that that next defibrillator is on its way. And we were a bit longer because I made that decision to go around the diversion. And after the job, I ate myself up for ages, thinking that I should have just tried to get through. Surely they should have let me go through emergency access. But I was kicking myself until we did a team debrief. We went to station one night and we had the critical incident support team come out, and we all talked about the scenario, the incident. And I brought that up, that I thought I'd made the wrong decision and I delayed our time arriving there, and we could have potentially made a bit of a difference to that person's life if we got there sooner. If I didn't decide, if I tried to force my way through. And I got really emotional about it and really upset. And the guys, one of the guys who wasn't on the truck, but he was trying to get to the station to respond, said that you wouldn't have got through. I tried getting through to station that way, but they were tarmacking the road. You would not have got through. You made the right call. So after weeks of kicking myself about making the wrong decision, I was like, oh, actually, okay. I felt relieved that
you were lucky to get that closure, though. Like that closure on the, because so many people would never get that answer.
Yeah. So for me, that's the hardest part of the job. Is dealing with.
When did you do your? So you've done your level 1 incident command, I'm guessing. You've done.
Yeah, so I only act up. I'm still firefighter, but I act up because we need incident commanders locally. I don't do it in my whole-time role, but I.
Are they not part of the same service?
Yeah, same service. Yeah,
but
yeah.
They don't recognise your ability to act up whole time.
No, it's an interesting one. There are different skills. Yeah.
It's the same incident command team must have trained you. Who would train you whole time? It's the same thing.
But it's not my job.
Fire engines. Oh my god! I'm not saying that you should or you need to act up whole time or anything like that, but I don't understand that. And I'm at a level where I have those conversations, and I'm not part of our specialist training unit, but I'm like, it must just take a group manager or somebody to go, oh, that was a stupid thing that we used to do then. Let's not do that anymore. Let's recognise the qualifications across the entire board, no matter what part of the service you belong to.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, that transfer of skills from your whole time, from your on call to your whole time. And how they don't always take advantage of what skills you've got, but also I tried getting on a water first responding course. I am a water first responder for my on-call role, but not for my whole-time role. And I wanted to go on a training day with the on-call, but I was on duty, and I couldn't get course leave to do the water first responding course because it's a different contract, and it's a different job role. So I couldn't get the day off to do it. So I really want to do it. So I booked a day's leave just so I could go on this course, which is ridiculous because it's the same service at the end of the day. It's an interesting one, but also there are things. There's been times where we've had firefighters, like on-call firefighters, who have been in the job whole time as temporary role, but don't pass the firefighter process, so they weren't good enough, or they couldn't pass the process. They didn't put enough time into preparing for their interviews or something like that. But then they applied for the watch command process. From on call straight into watch and got a whole time watch commander job. How does that work? So you can't get through as a firefighter, but you can get into whole time as a watch commander. That's where you have to be very delicate with the on call and the whole time. I think I tried twice to get in whole time as a firefighter, and I did eventually get through after a lot of determination, a lot of being knocked down and getting myself back up again, and what else can I do, what more can I do. That I had a goal. I wanted to get in, and I kept working towards that goal. Whether it's, if you don't get in as firefighter, oh, you know what, I'll go apply for the watch commander process and I'll skip those, and that's where you get that lack of respect.
Yeah, especially when people transfer across like that, it can
everyone
ways that way how it's received.
Exactly. Firefighters are the biggest gossips I've ever known. Like I've
honestly,
I've got a load of girlfriends.
I love it. I've just stopped listening now because people will say, "Have you heard this?" And I'm like, I'll have to add it to the Excel sheet of rumors about me because apparently I've done some crazy shit. I've ran services. I've done some stupid stuff. I've killed people. I've slept with people on fire stations. I don't know what I've done these days. I can't keep track of it all.
Yeah, biggest rumor mill. Yeah, yeah, it is funny. Yeah, because even growing up, my mum would ring my uncle after drill night on the next day, and she'd say, "Oh, so what's the local gossip?"
What?
Uh, so
I
yeah,
always love it. It's an old Peter Kay joke, isn't it? Where he's like, you've got that woman next door, and she's like, "Hi, is everything okay?" And I'm a bit of a nosy bitch.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
most people in the fires. Yeah, bored firefighters are nosy bitches. Honestly,
yeah,
the buggers,
yeah.
their own
They
worst
are.
enemy.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you then about that. When you did your incident command, what was that like the first time you were sort of took charge of a truck? Was there any reservation? Because there's a
Oh,
lot of
it was a
people
joke.
happening these days, like moving into those roles. So,
Yeah.
and people are
So
petrified
yeah.
about it. Some people are not ready for it.
Oh, I was
What made you think
petrified.
you could
Yeah.
do it, and what made you?
Um,
What was the hardest part of it?
my team behind me encouraged me to do it. I wasn't sure that I could do it. But my group around me were like they believed in me. They thought, yeah, you can do this. So they actually put me forward.
Wow.
My watch commanders and crew commanders. And then I had the respect of the firefighters as well. They're like, yeah, you'd be good at that. Yeah, you can do it. So for me, that's what I think. Going back to the why women prepare more, I think because we doubt ourselves more.
Yeah.
We definitely lack confidence in our ability. I do. I don't always believe in myself. So they believed in me, so I did it, and I passed my assessments. And then we had our first job, and I was in charge, and it was cat stuck up a tree. And I generally thought that I'd been stitched over. So going to the job, I was talking to I reckon the boys had stitched me up. So I was like, who's organised this? Somebody's stitched me up here. It's one of you. And they were all sniggering and like egging me on that yeah, someone
Yeah.
stitched her up over here. But it was a genuine cat secretary job. Which I was lucky. It was quite an easy one to manage to see first job in charge. But it became a real joke.
Hmm.
And the boys were loving it. That
How did you
I
find your
found,
first one,
yeah,
like attending alongside a whole time substantive commander that you don't know? Because that's the scary one for
yeah,
people where they're like, who are we going with? Well, we're going with this station and so is covering from wherever. You've never worked with him or her. They're an unknown watch commander or whatever. You're just acting up, firefighter, temporary crew commander or whatever people term them as.
yeah.
That
I
is
found
sometimes the
it,
scariest bit for people when they get there
yeah,
and it's all going and they're given real tasks and there's a real fire or there's a real person trapped or something
yeah,
definitely needs to be done, and then it's go.
yeah. I found that intimidating. But being the first truck on scene, I had faith in my crew. That they're all competent. They're all some of their abilities are way better than mine. I'm just there to make the decisions, to put the right radio message back, put the safety precautions in place. And I knew I could do that, and I relied on my crew. It's not always the case now. So many new firefighters
Yeah.
coming in that I'm lucky with my crew that I could trust them. But when the whole time lot would turn up, I feel quite intimidated. There's me and my oversized Insta Command jacket that looks like a dress
Yeah.
on me. But I approached it as, look, this is what I've done. This is what we're doing. I'm not 100% confident. I'm quite new. Tell me, yeah, guide me. And that approach, I think, went down quite well because I I'm still I'm not being that dick that's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
But I'm relying on I'm asking for help.
Mhm.
What more can we do? I'm still a part of the team, even if I am the one in charge.
Hmm.
So
That's a great question. Like when you say, what more can we do? I always say to people, like, what can you see? What more can we do? Or would you do anything differently?
mhm,
It's not saying that you're gonna change your mind and rely on them or anything like that, but it's this is what I've seen from where I am. Would you do anything differently? What have you
yeah,
seen? And just
yeah,
let them be part. They're almost, I mean, they are. Let them feel part of the decision making process. I always say to people, I don't need to have the idea. I'm going to take responsibility. So don't worry. You give me all the ideas and all that sort of stuff. If it goes wrong, it's my fault. That's okay. I'll take responsibility for it. But I don't need to have the idea. It doesn't need to be my plan. If you can demonstrate to me, what do you see? What could we do differently? If you can demonstrate to me there's a better way to do it, 100%. I'm not married to my strategic plan.
Yeah, I think, I've watched my partner. I don't work with him very often. We're on different shifts, but I've covered one of his firefighters before, and he's a watch commander, and he always takes his probie or his trainee firefighter off the truck with him, and I've witnessed him guide his probie and just say, "What do you think?" And at the end of the day, he's really strong, and he's reliable, and you know that he'll make the right decision. But every job, he gets somebody to come off with him to have a look around, to discuss, to look at options, and ultimately, he'll make the decision. But I really value that, and that what he does, that he's getting others involved. He's not just, this is my job. Ultimately he does that because he's quite a strong chauvinistic male, but also like most of the time when he is right, he is right. And but he also, the way I really like the way that he manages, and he gets his probie to come with me, bring the tick, let's go and have a look at this together. What do you think? You guide, even though I'm going to shadow you, I'm going to stand behind you. I'm going to ultimately deal with the person we're meeting.
What's it like being in a relationship with somebody that's also part of the emergency services? Does it make doing the job easier? Does it make doing the job? I know it's not something we discussed before, but does it make it easier? Does it make it harder? Do you just end up talking about it all the time, or does it? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly? I suppose
the good is that we understand the pressures. So we're lucky in the way that the way our shifts work, we'll always get 2 days off a week together, whether those 2 days are midweek or it's only 1 in 8 that we're together off on the weekend. But it's nice to get those 2 down days together. But sometimes those down days, Neil might come off a shift, and he's absolutely exhausted off a night shift, and he needs that first day to sleep. I get that because I know exactly how it feels. Whereas for some partners who aren't in the fire service and they've got plans with the kids, and their partner is absolutely shattered, but they're forced into doing this day out that they planned because it's been booked and paid for. That's where I feel quite lucky, because we understand each other, we understand those pressures. The disadvantages are, we're fire service at work, we're on call, and then we get home and we're talking about the fire service as well. Like,
does he work on call as well?
He used to, yes. So he's now the on call for HUSAR, the Urban Search and Rescue Team. Ultimately, he's on call, but different on call units.
Does he get like 90 minutes to respond or something like that when the alert goes off as well? Because they do get ages. It's not the same as on call as some people perhaps think of it. The USAR is most services is very rarely on call is called upon. It's usually if they've got a really complex shoring job or something like that, or there's been an issue regionally, and they need to go somewhere else, like if there's been an explosion or there's been a collapsed building or something like that. So they get a retainer still, don't they, every month? But to be fair to him, they're probably very rare. I think we do 1 training day a month, I think, and then he probably never gets called out.
No, he doesn't.
USAR is not. It's been interesting to see what happens with a lot of the USAR stuff, because a lot of USAR came in as part of the New Dimensions project after the attacks of 9/11 in London. And that whole thing is coming to an end now. A lot of the money's dried up. It was, I can't remember how many years ago it was now, but I know they've got rid of a lot of the national assets in terms of decontamination and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting time to see what individual services do with their urban search and rescue. Because certainly with the rope rescue in the water, it's still very valuable. But it's interesting to see how different services justify the rest of the skill sets. But I'm sure he'll know more about it than I will.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Cool stuff to do. Do you ever want to do any of that training?
I would love to. Yeah, I would really
get
love
it on
to.
your list. It's really
get
cool.
on that concrete drill.
Yeah,
and like break through concrete. Yeah, I would love to.
What bits of those do you think will be most exciting? Because for me, I actually love the rope stuff. Is the best for me. I love the rope stuff. Cool. Breaking and breaching and stuff like that is cool, but it's also sometimes just a little bit like glorified construction work. When I've been doing it, once you've done a couple of dirty breaches, they're all kind of similar. The rope work can get unnecessarily complex. Some people love to, let's do a 23-1 with a bloody diagonal trap. What the fuck? No.
What? I don't do math.
Yeah, I don't know why we would do that. We're just trying to get them off that ledge down onto the floor. So I don't know what we're doing here. But which part of it kind of excites you most? And what other areas in your career do you have kind of a bucket list?
Oh, yeah. Wow. I loved it. The Hussar dog, radar. I would love to work with the dog.
It's a big commitment, you know. It just came up in our service to become the handler.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And if you do it, so it's interesting because some services you have to stay as a firefighter. Some services it doesn't matter. Some services like they've got station commanders who are handlers, but in our service you can only have a rank. So because I was had an interest in doing it, but I would have to lose 2 ranks. I'd have to go down and do it as a firefighter, which I was like, that's not fair. Firstly, and it kind of alienates people that because often like fire investigation and a whole bunch of other quality news are I've got all my tickets, so I'd be useful for it, but you're not going to let me do it because I'm a watch commander. But anyway, I digress. But like, it's a massive commitment. I think you have to agree to do it for a minimum of like 5 or 10 years, something like that, because it's going to take you 3 years to get the dog to pass trials, probably.
I think I'd struggle with because ultimately they're working dogs. I would really struggle. Like, what? He's not allowed to sleep with me in my bed?
Like, that's it. My wife didn't like that. I was like, so if we did it, he would sleep in a kennel outside.
Yeah, I'd struggle with that.
Wouldn't come in the lounge and cuddle at night necessarily.
Yeah,
because that's not what he's there for.
Yeah,
he's a tool. He's a resource. He's not ours either. He's an asset to the service.
Yeah, it would be a very cool job. But yeah, I think I'd struggle not turning it into a pet.
I think you should do it. I think you
Mummy cuddling it.
Do you know any of the teams? There's a great lady, Lindsay. She's going to come on the podcast at some point. She's in international search and rescue with me, and she's had commendations from the Queen and all sorts of stuff. She is like the UK lead in both search dogs, cadaver dogs. She's got I think they've just got a beautiful new Mally, actually. If you can follow them on, if you go on Fire Search Dogs on Instagram, I don't know if you follow that page at all.
Yeah.
Go and look for them. Lindsay is predominantly and there's a bunch of other people, great people in the team. There's Mac and Dave, and there's great people, but Lindsay would be a wonderful person to speak to. I mean, you're very young. Something you wanted to do at some point in your career. I'll reach out to her and I'll
find her on Instagram.
Lindsay would be amazing to speak to. She's so inspiring. She's just really nice as well, and she really knows her shit.
Yeah,
really knows her stuff.
Yeah. That would be cool. Yeah. Oh, look up.
What else have you got on your list?
That would be cool.
Now that you've had this taste for sort of incident command, do you have that feeling for promotion? Is there any? Not that you should or that you need to.
Yeah, I think it's I am quite a determined person. So I can get bored quite quickly. So some of the days on shift where it's quite a slow day, I get quite irritable where I just need something to do. Can't just take, Sunday afternoons, we're having a quiet day, we're going to sit around, drink tea, and I'm like, no, I'm at work, I need to work. It really irritates my partner.
Does that echo back though to when we spoke about people staying in watches for a number of years, and there's an aspect of loyalty to watches and things like that, whereas because when you start speaking like that, it feels like me, because I can't really stay anywhere for longer than like 2 years. I just get itchy feet. I'm bored now. I've done it. I want to go and do something else. That doesn't mean get promoted. It just means like I'll move into a different department and I'll go and do something else. And I struggle with that sometimes because I do in one way, I envy some people that have stayed on watches for many years and they're super close and they're super
and stayed
tight
very happy. Yeah.
And the team is so effective and efficient, and they've had the same watch commander for 15 years, and it works very well. But also, part of me is like, oh, I could think of nothing worse. I want. There's so many things to do, and it's kind of like the torture of doing this as well. I speak to so many amazing people where I'm like, oh God, I'd love to do that. I'd love to come and I'll go and do that for a bit, or I'll go and do some work at the college, or I'll. So there's just people forget how many opportunities there are out there.
Oh God, there is in the fire service. There really is. I've always been like that. I've always grown up. I was like, I wanted to dance, I wanted to sing, I wanted to play cricket, I wanted to do hockey, I wanted to do football, I wanted to do everything. My poor parents were running around taxing me left, right, and centre because I wanted to do everything. So yeah, I'm a bit like that. But in the fire service, I quite like to see going forward. For my rural area, it's more work with the ambulance service.
Yes.
So we're next door. We border a service who do respond to these Category 1 calls, and I've got two friends that have needed that Category 1 call. So one friend, he lost his father, and he was doing CPR on his own father one night, and I knew that we were 2 minutes away. His house is 2 minutes away from the fire station where we have a defibrillator, but he waited 25 minutes for the ambulance to turn up. And when I found out, I was devastated that I didn't get a phone call, or like, there's assets sat in my town not being used, and it could have made a difference. We could have got there within 5 minutes and made a difference to his dad's life. We don't know. We don't know unless we try, but it's not being put through at the moment. Where there's the next county over, they do it, and I've had a positive result where it's actually happened quite raw. It happened a month ago. My friend's wife had a stroke, and he was being talked through doing CPR on his own wife over the phone, and the first people who responded were two firefighters in a truck from the fire station 10 minutes away, so he's just across the border. And he said that relief of having someone else there to take over, to help you, you're not on your own doing CPR on your wife anymore. And then it was another 15 minutes until the ambulance arrived. I mean, it's not the ambulance's fault that they're under so much pressure and they've got such huge areas to cover, but the fire service is such an advantage that we've got these on-call assets dotted around everywhere, so close. So what I'd like to see rurally is more teamwork with the ambulance service, and those calls where we can help. Why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we helping?
I need to, and I'm going to make a note about it, because I keep having ideas about this and I keep talking about it with so many people, but I've seen those trials. I've been part of those co-responding trials, and I would love to have that and like American model style thing where certain people on the watch can get upskilled all the way up to a paramedic if they want to, even if it takes them 3 or 4 years to qualify in that respect. We don't have to impose it on everybody. You can opt in and opt out. If you can get whatever, I don't know, if they say if you can get 30% of the people on your watch that want to do this, then we will allow that facility, that asset, that resource will be added to your station. And then when those calls comes in, those individuals will respond. And then the trucks will turn out with just 4 people on one truck, or one truck will go off the run and you'll ride 5 on the other, or whatever it might be. And I know services that have done it, and some services still do it. So I need to, and I'll make a note about it, I need to have more conversations. I need to have more conversations, with the union, because we need to have the union on the podcast.
Absolutely, it needs to be executed.
They got wrapped up with all the pay stuff at the minute, so we had to cancel the last podcast. But I want to get them on for that, and I want to ask them where they see the future skill sets, because we know, the last 15 years, diminishing calls, blah, 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 blah. But I always say it on the podcast ad nauseum, and people would be bored of hearing it, but it's like, there's like a buffet of the services that we could be doing for our communities. We are in a position at the minute where I feel like it's our choice. We can choose, or surely we have a say in which jobs do we want to do. And whilst we still have that choice, I would love for us, and the more firefighters I speak to, but then again, do I speak to a bias of firefighters? I speak to people like you who are really passionate about the job. So it's like, am I just speaking into an echo chamber all the time? I don't know. But I'm like, I speak to a lot of people that say, yeah, I'd love to, I love the NHS. I'd love to help co-respond. I'd rather go to people in critical need than going and cutting people's hedges, or than going fixing stair rails in people's houses. But if we don't make a choice at some point, then the police will start running the fire services. The choices will be taken away from us, and they will tell us what we're doing. And it won't be shit you want to do. It'll be something you don't want to do. It'll be whatever rubbish security work at local, I don't know. It'll be antisocial behavioural work, walking around parks, I don't know. But if we could, and I don't know whether it's a union pay thing that's holding it up, or I don't know, and that's why I'm making a note to have more of those conversations, because I'd love to see us do more of that.
I think in our service, what's preventing it is the ambulance service that we work with in our counties. They're meeting their targets. They're hitting their targets. It doesn't matter that they miss the odd one out here in the rural community.
Yeah, on average,
it doesn't make a difference to their stats.
So
why make the change if it doesn't affect their stats?
Yeah, but they're going to see that diminished, because just in general, they're struggling to recruit paramedics, and the average length of a paramedic career now is 5 years.
The poor paramedics, they get battered.
Yeah, absolutely literally, battered. They are non-stop. Yeah. My brother-in-law's paramedic, and I've done a number of ride-alongs with him. And
brilliant.
Yeah, it's literally from the start in the morning to the end of the shift. It's go, 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 go. They have a late lunch every day. Sometimes they don't get their lunch.
No.
And it's not even like we go to loads more, even though we go to a lot less incidents, we attend more trauma than they do. Because, it's not all the big sexy jobs, or someone's tried to commit suicide, or someone's fallen off a bridge. It's Janice has got blood in her poo, and you've got to go and sit in the lounge with her and talk about it, which is important work. And like you talk about development in the paramedics, and it's just, they've got so many directions that they can take. Like he's doing a new qualification every freaking month, and they get a pay increment every time he does a qualification. Like now he can prescribe at the incident, so he can diagnose, and he's not special. I'm sure lots of people do it, but to lighten the load of GPs and stuff like that. So you don't want everybody cramming into the local GP. If I can come to you, I can see that you've got a problem, I can write a prescription for you there and then, even though you've responded via a 999 call and stuff like that. I feel, and I know the NHS is massive compared to us, but and sometimes that might be the problem. Like we struggle to engage with them, and we struggle to make local arrangements because they're such a behemoth. I don't know.
Yeah,
and that's why
local arrangements is key. Yeah, I think it's very specific to where you are. I don't think it will be valued so much in my whole time role. The ambulance will probably be there quicker than we get there, because there's an ambulance station next door to us. But at home, it's a very different story. You're waiting. We had an RTC just outside my house, and we waited an hour for the ambulance to turn up. A whole hour. We had people stopping, looking at us, watching us do our job, and we need to upskill. Like if that is needed in my area, then let's do it. Like we were made water responders because we're right next to a river.
So what level is that to? Is that a mod 1, mod 2? What is it?
We're just water first responders.
So is that water awareness?
Wading.
Also wading. So wading's module 2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So because we common road floods, and you still get those idiots that still think they can drive through the flood, and so the most we're wading through to get them out of their cars.
You ever get a chance to do your mod 3? Swift water rescue is really cool.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I'm sure your partner's probably done it.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be keen, but
has he got loads of bags of shit in the garage? His dry suits and all that. Fucking so much.
My garage is full of kit.
All the gear and no idea. There's lots and lots of stuff.
It sounds like you know him. Yeah. But yeah, we were given, so our station was given that water asset.
Yeah.
Because of what's around us. Now, why can't that be done like offering us extra skills to deal with patients and casualties, and get a bit more clued up in the same manner, because not every station's water first responder at the moment.
No, you're right. Yeah, and they've done it with certain rope assets around us as well. Like only certain trucks now have rope rescue versus work positioning. Some have rope rescue, and then there's rope access and different transitions between it. But you're right. It would make a lot more sense. Same as like inner city stations have high-rise bags, so they have certain bags for you know. You haven't got any high rise on your patch, then you haven't. But if you've got water on your patch, or if there's, not local ambulance stations, then is there an argument to upskill? Well, there is an argument, most definitely. And I feel like the data's there. But maybe it's because all the data sits within the NHS and we work in silos.
Yeah,
perhaps. It's becoming very clear. I need to speak to somebody about this. I'm going to go and hunt people down on LinkedIn or Google and try and find someone to speak to.
Yeah.
So talk to me about any surprises or, anything that you didn't realize about the job before you came in.
So the BBC documentary was they captured a great night shift where we responded to jobs, anything other than what you'd imagine we actually do. So we went to, it was 3 a.m, and we got called to flooding and electrics. So we were like, oh, okay, this is unusual, like hoping that with the BBC film crew with us, we'll get some sort of raging house fire where we get to really show off what we do. But no, we get elderly couple flooding in electrics. We turned up and they'd had a plumber there earlier that day, and something had gone wrong, and they had water pissing out into the old boy's bedroom. And this old boy, bless him, suffered with severe dementia. So the wife couldn't get him out of the room, and it was flooded. The carpet was absolutely drenched. It was coming through the ceiling down below, so through all the light fittings.
Oh God! When you
so
see
she was panicking.
Like that,
it was
horrible,
the middle of the night. Yeah, so we went there, and fortunately we managed to encourage the old boy to move, to get him out of that bedroom. We don't know whether the water damage was that severe that the bed was going to come through the ceiling. So we managed to get him out. It took some talking and convincing. It was good to have and then we isolated the leak.
That's it. Isolate the leak.
I didn't realize
pump it out.
Joining the fire service, you need to also be a plumber, and you need to also be an electrician. some of the times, like, oh, can you go and isolate the electrics? And I'm like, oh.
That's a massive thing now. Like when you were sitting on certain stations where
I don't get trained to do
you haven't got a worldly crew, or you haven't got a crew that are in their late 20s or 30s or 40s, and everyone's in their early 20s. They didn't learn to fix their own car, so they don't know anything about cars. They've never worked on a building site. They've never even worked in a pub or anything like that where they've had to and it's just like, go and have a look where the fuse box is. And they're like, the what?
Yeah.
The box. And they're like, so is that like a in like a cupboard, or is it like where they keep the fuse? No, the fuse board.
Yeah.
The fuse board. The RCBs, the fuse board, where all the electrics come in. Right. Is there a sign for that? And I'm like, it's in the same fucking place in most properties. It's going to be on the inside, just inside the door, left or right, under the stairs maybe. And they're like, but again, it sounds harsh, but it's like, that's where I think we need to think a little bit differently. Maybe this is something I want to ask you actually, like, what are some of the things that you think, I know that's an obvious one, but are there anything you think we don't cover in training now? Because we used to, we operated in the conditioning of like, well, we think people know the general these things and we'll teach them fire service specific stuff. But there's so much stuff actually that we can't assume people know these days.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Don't get me wrong. We still need to put the wet stuff on the hot stuff.
Yeah, we're good at that.
We're good at that.
We know how to do that
bit. One thing that's caught me out is the changes of hybrid cars, electric cars, and you turn up to a crash and you're like, oh, shit, this is an electric car, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. How are we isolating this? So you're having to research, and you're having to use your MDT, and you're having to like look things up, and what are the dangers of this car? And that's not what we're trained in. Like electric car and what a nightmare trying to put that out. What we need to figure out how
We're
to attack
very
that.
behind the curve on that.
Very behind, yeah.
There's a few things happening, and we've got Steve North from IRRTC is going to come back on the podcast and speak to us about the new extrication methods and about the new extinguishing methods and stuff that they're using with electric vehicles. But yeah, we've been so far behind the manufacturing process. We used to work, from my limited knowledge, historically quite closely with manufacturers, and we'd get an understanding for the layouts of vehicles. But also vehicles didn't change much over the case of 20 years. Now, over the past 10 years, they've changed tremendously. As technology collides with the mechanical world, there is innovations happening at such a pace that we are not keeping up to speed with it. In loads of stuff, in houses, in smart electric systems, in in different energy sources like solar panels, like some of the other things that people are using in homes, and especially with electric vehicles and different hydrogen batteries that are stored in homes and stuff like that, and lithium batteries. It's something we definitely need to get. We're getting away with it a little bit at the minute, but there's going to be more and more cases where it catches us out, I think.
It is going to catch us out. Yeah. I think there's solar panels as well. We're not really sure, or just so you know, everyone's aware there's solar panels on this roof, on this building that's on fire. We're like, right, okay, noted. But no one actually knows,
what does that mean?
Well, we're gonna, what does it mean if they catch fire, or
I'm aware of it.
Fall
so
for the
what
roof,
does it mean?
Or how do we?
Can I just throw a sheet over it? Does that mean if I isolate the fuse box, everything's still live?
Yeah.
Is it DC or is it AC
That's
current?
What we don't know. Yeah.
Is there a separate battery source in the home? If so, where would it be? Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff. And again, we need to make sure that we're not making assumptions. Don't assume that everybody knows what that means when you say it. And if you don't know what it means, go look it up, or ask a question. Don't just go, oh yeah, all right, mate, all right. I'll let the boys know. Do you know what that fucking means?
Yeah. I've had experiences where before I joined the whole time, I spent a couple of nights down on station with one of the guys, just to get better at using the impact driver, or picking the right screwdriver, or the right
small tools,
spanner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm it doesn't come naturally to me, using a toolbox. So I spent a few hours on station taking apart bits of the truck with the impact driver, and then putting it back together again, just so I felt a bit more confident using the tools, because I didn't want to turn up to a whole time station and be that typical woman that doesn't know how to use an impact driver.
But also if you don't know what things are called,
like that.
Do you know what nose pliers are? Do you know what the mole grips are? Do you know what a monkey wrench is?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Those things.
I don't know what a monkey wrench is.
People just make assumptions about those things, and it can be. Some people can be great, and if you're lucky, like you say, and you get someone that goes, "Oh, no worries, just it's the one that looks like this," and then when they get back to station, they'll show it to you properly, and then you'll go through it. But some people won't be like that. There are still some small-minded people who will just be like, "Fucking hell, new girl doesn't even know any of the fucking tools." And I'll be like,
oh yeah.
So have you spent some time? Have you shown her? It's not my job. Whoa. Fucking whoa. Yeah. It's everybody's job. If a firefighter goes somewhere and they're not sure what they're doing, that's a failure of the watch. It's not a failure of just that firefighter. Because as soon as you recognize that there's some uncertainty or a lack of confidence or a lack of skill sets in one of your colleagues, it's your job to help them as well. It's your job to be able to help them either get over themselves or help them recognize that and help them be able to get better. They should never not develop through a lack of people willing to help them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
that's the sad bit. And I honestly think that's in my experiences, women are given less of an opportunity to learn in that respect.
Yeah,
if a guy doesn't know, guys will show guys, but if a girl doesn't know, they're like, oh yeah, look, this girl, she doesn't know.
Yeah,
and that fucking guy doesn't know either. You're not being a dick about him, are you?
Yeah, I've had situations where, oh, Leanne, you do this because you're better at that, and it's like, well, no, give me a go on the tools. I want to have a go. It's up to myself to say, actually, no, I want to have a go. Teach me, show me, rather than expecting that wiser, more experienced firefighter to show you. Right, when we get back, please, can you do this with me? And just be a bit more
assertive.
Take charge. Yeah, and just ask.
Yeah.
Ask if
That
you're
is
not
your
sure.
development as well at the end of the day. You've
Yeah.
got to lead it. You've got to ask, and then you've got to ask again because people are busy, and then something comes up. So you've got to be willing to ask them again. Be like, oh, I don't want to seem rude. I don't. Well, then you'll just be shit forever. Yeah. You've got to ask. It's not because half the time, especially for me, like it's not because I don't care. It's because I just got carried away, or I ended up being on a podcast for 2 hours when I thought it would be on for an hour. You know, I'm terrible at that, and I'm like, oh, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, my watchman is just like that. He's just such a people person. Loves to chat.
How do you handle? I mean, it sounds like you're part of a great team anyway. But even if it's not from your own experiences, do you have any advice for people that are dealing with negative people? Because you seem, and I know you're obviously on a podcast, but you seem relentlessly optimistic, and you've obviously got a partner that supports you. But it's not the case for a lot of people. Some people, either their family or their friends won't support them, or their watch won't support them, or they'll be around people that don't want to see them succeed.
Yeah, it's very common. Since being whole time, I've interacted with far more negative people than I have in my life. It's sad. It's really sad because it's the best job in the world. It really is. And you get those that get stuck in a rut. And they get so negative, and they're just there to do the bare minimum, and they won't go above and beyond. And it really frustrates me, someone like me who's tried so hard to get into to do this job, and then sometimes you can fall into that same rut with them, and you can get negative. But for me, how I deal with them is, I try and inject that enthusiasm and that positivity and try and learn from them. So if they're being like, well, don't want to do this, and find a way to ask them, but you know that instant when you decided to use that bit of kit and improvise, I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah. Why did you do that? What? And then just interaction and get them feeling involved. And once you trigger that actually she's really interested to know about this, and she actually finds me interesting.
Their own favorite subject is often themselves as well. If you can just stroke that ego a little bit and help them realize they've got value to add and that you want to learn from them, that's enough to get some of them moving.
Yeah, just keeping them included. Just don't give in to their mindsets. Always go to work with that positive attitude. I usually drive to work, listen to the podcast, get myself.
You listen sometimes.
I
listen
do.
to other podcasts because there's a lot more interesting shit there. Have a bit of a blend.
I have beat in my ear, gearing me up for work. I'm like, I'm up for today. Today's gonna be a good day. And just keep hold of that positivity and don't give in to that, to their mindset and their way of thinking. Yeah,
because it's not working for them. Do you know what I mean? When you ask them, know, this is shit and that shit. What have you tried to do something about it? You know, how do you see this developing if you don't do anything about it? You know, what do you think is going to happen if you don't take action? And they're like, I'm just gonna leave it how it is. It's not my job or something like that. And you think, how is it working out for you so far? And they're not happy. Do you know what I mean? As I find some people are so desperate to fit in with people that don't like their own life. And I think, why are you trying to fit in with that group? Because people would probably say that you or I are not the common, normal, stereotypical people that they'll find on certain fire stations, maybe. But be very conscious about what group are you trying to fit in with, because you do want to be part of a team. But when you start to inject your own perspective, your own thoughts, your own mindset into that team, you become part of that culture. So are you going to bring the water level up a little bit, or are you going to bring it down? And it's not saying you can change everybody, and nor should we try, but personalities or opinions or optimism, for want of a better description, is contagious. Do you want people to catch your attitude? Do you know what I mean? And I always say, and I try and get my missus to kind of hold me accountable as well. I'm like, I've got it on the mirror when I get up. People think, oh, what a wanker. But it says, make a choice to be the best version of yourself. That's all.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I'll come back and I'll be soaking wet from walking the dog, or obviously we're training him at the minute, and sometimes he's not doing what I want. and Claire will ask me how it's going, and I might snap, and I'll be like, oh, and then I'll say later, and it might take me 10 minutes to get that self-awareness, or I might do it straight away, or it might be later. I'll be like, no, I'm sorry about earlier. You didn't deserve for me to come home and say that to you. And I try and do it before I enter the house, and I try and do it before I enter the fire station as well. It's like, what am I taking in there with me?
Yeah.
Does it belong to be there? Like, the whole analogy of not taking work home, but also not taking too much. If you're struggling with something, you should share it with somebody for sure. But if I'm really angry about my drive to work, which is very rare for me, I'm not that kind of person. But if I was, I'm sure a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Does that belong at work? Do I want to take it in with me? Or actually, can I stand outside for just 2 minutes and make the decision to leave it outside and go, I'm not going to take this shit in with me because it doesn't belong there. And later on, when I come back out and I get back in my car, if I want to get really angry again, then I can do. But chances are, when I come out later, I will have forgotten all about it. But it certainly doesn't belong in there in the same way that your past experiences or the thing that's going on outside of work with your own business or whatever it might be, it's entirely up to you how you choose to allow that to affect the rest of your environment.
Yeah.
Some people operate in surges in their careers, and then like they have a last growth spurt and then they stop wherever they want to. But I think you're one of those that, due to your sunny disposition and just your mindset, you'll be on humming. You'll tick over all the time above the average. No, I sincerely hope so. I hope you don't have some horrific line manager that kicks all that happiness and optimism out of you. And I don't think you're like that. But no, some people only switch on when they can see an opportunity. And I don't find that works for a long and fulfilling career, or even a long and fulfilling life. Do you know what I mean? I think I get to do a bunch of cool stuff because I try as my best, and I probably fail on a daily basis, but I try to have that optimism and that disposition every day. And if stuff goes wrong, people cancel on me, people cancel podcasts, sponsors fall through, whatever, this too shall pass. Do you know what I mean? Tomorrow the fucking sun's still going to rise. Don't fucking worry about it. Do you know what I mean?
With my like emotion, I do sometimes need to not focus so much on the disappointment, but look forward, and just
it's a game.
Don't know where,
So this one got away from me. This one got away. That's okay. I'll do the next one. I always say to people, I've done how many was it for this? So 20, I think it's 21 processes to get my watch commanders. Well, I've done 21 processes from firefighter to watch commander. So God knows how many it was for crew commander, and then I did another 10 or so for the watch commanders one. And every single time I would fail, people would be like, because it's like when we were talking earlier about like not ticking boxes. I was always like, I'm not playing this stupid fucking game. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to say what I feel. And people were always like, Pete, just play the fucking game. Do you know what I mean? Just play the game. I know you want to do this, and I know you want to stick with your morals. I know you think it's not right, but you're not getting anywhere. You just need to get over yourself and do that. But I was like, that's okay. And they're like, Pete, your face doesn't fit. They won't want you. You think differently. You're a bit weird. And every time we're right, but I was also just like, you know what? If someone's got away from me, I'll go again. And people just like, mate, there's optimism, and then there's just naive, blind stupidity. Like, you need to learn when someone doesn't want to play with you anymore and leave it alone. But I was like, no, I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe anybody gets up in the morning and plays 1-to-1 defense on your ambition or your dreams or your desires. They really don't care that much. You're not as important. We're not as important as we think we are. So
something springs to mind actually about you saying playing the game. Doing my first on-call course where you've got your core skills course, and the hose running day, and it's a killer, absolute killer. And I was terrible. Even though I practiced with my Uncle G, I was terrible. And I had this instructor who I massively respect, but this instructor was yelling behind me in my ear, going, come on, firefighter player, this is a bag of shit. You're terrible. And I was crying. I was like, oh, I'm so terrible. I can't do this job. And like that evening, I'd ring my Uncle G and I'd be like, oh, I'm so terrible and they're so mean to me. But he said, like, just play the game. Yeah, you've got this. It's fine. Just ignore it. Rise above it. Play the game. So I was like, oh, okay, gather myself again and pull myself back together. And actually, now I massively respect that instructor for yelling at me and emotionally putting me through that stress, because that happens a lot on the job. That you're doing something and you feel very uncomfortable in the situation, but you've got to do it. It's your job to do it. And
especially something like the pump operator job, people undervalue that. But when it's the middle of the night, it's pissing down with rain, the BA have already committed into it, and you've got the hose reel out, and you know you've only got so much time on the tank, and you think you know where a hydrant is, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to go now, and you go for it, and you've got fucking 2 lengths under your arm, and you're like, oh shit, I can't find it. Shit, I need to get back to the pump. Oh god, they're calling me on the radio, and it's like, fuck.
But yeah,
and that happens. Really, so if we don't test that, if we don't find a way to safely apply that pressure in a training environment, which I think we still need to do, I have feelings about training schools where I'm like, don't make it completely don't scream at somebody for no reason, but like we do need to have that sense of urgency. We do need to have that pressure simulation. And if people say, oh, I can't handle it, well, then it's probably not for you. You know, when you're in the classroom, in a learning environment, then learn. But we do need to have a pressure environment as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I needed to know that I could deal with that pressure scenario. And throughout that core skills course, that 3 weeks for me felt like torture. But I overcome it, I got through it. And that sense of achievement at the end of it was huge, and I was really proud. And that instructor who I had a real hate for during the course, like, oh, he's so horrible, he's so mean, I hate him. But now I have huge respect for him for really testing me and putting me out there, and I'm really grateful for it. And I feel it's unfortunate if people don't experience that, if instructors are too afraid to push you to your limits. It's a shame, because you don't want to be experiencing those limits when you're on a job and it's someone else's life at risk.
Absolutely agree. That's what I'm saying. I would argue that instructor at that time was lucky enough to be in an environment where he was allowed the freedom to do what he felt was the right thing to do with his students at the time. Now, that can also go the bad way, and there are lots of examples of bullying and everything like that, and that's terrible, and I hate that, but I don't really think that exists anymore. But I am scared that the pendulum swings too far the other way, whereby we do a disservice to the watchers by giving them a recruit who has never been placed in a pressured environment, and then they've got one person off sick and they've got maximum leave, and that person is there as BA number 2. There's no one else looking after them, and they are there, and something goes wrong, or they are called upon, they need to go up there by themselves, or they need to go around the back of the job and do something, and they've never been in that environment before. And that's where I feel like we're setting them up to fail. People worry about setting people up to fail in training, and it's almost like they push it back sometimes. They don't apply enough pressure, they don't have a high enough standard, and they push that failure back to when they're actually in their operational career, and they realize, oh, fucking hell, it wasn't like this in training. I don't think I can do it. Well, it's too fucking late now. On the fucking truck. We're going to the job. Especially if you've got a new incident commander sat in the front as well, and they're like, Jesus Christ, I've got 2 probationers that aren't sure what they're doing, and my driver's looking at me like, oh, so I'm fucking doing everything, am I? That's the way it is. Like, it's the 2 of us then, me ode. And there are a lot of incredible probationers out there, but all I'm saying is we need to keep that battle rhythm there for people that are training. As we sort of wrap it up, I wanted to ask you what advice you kind of have, because you've clearly gone from you've kind of done the whole spectrum. You've done the on-call, you've done the whole time, you now moved into a command position, you've had those fitness challenges, you've overcome them. Is there any advice you'd have for people joining the service that maybe want to go the same path that you're going?
Yeah, I would say learn from whatever happens, but never lose sight of your goals and your dreams. You've got to put the hard work in, you've got to have the determination, and then your dreams can come true.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, look, I'm really appreciative of your time this morning. You've been very generous with it. I'm terrible at getting carried away, but hopefully we can both take responsibility for some of the rabbit holes we've wandered down. But send my love to you, fella. More importantly, send my love to your beautiful little boy. And I really look forward to catching up with you at some point soon.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
The Firefighters Podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.